Klein, class of '82, and on behalf of my co-chairs, Lauren Leviton and Lori Arthur, we're delighted to welcome you tonight to the kickoff of the Northern California Duke Women's Forum. I'd like to recognize our terrific steering committee members. Ladies, if you could raise your hands so everyone knows who you are. They all helped really bring this together, and in particular, I want a special thanks to Lisa Mango from Autodesk for getting us this phenomenal space. Yeah. Also, Elizabeth Leaf, who organized the catering that we had this evening, and Amy Caton, who helped with all the organizational outreach and communication that we had. Duke has been incredibly supportive throughout, and we're delighted to have with us tonight, all the way from Durham, Sterling Wilder, class of '83, and Associate Vice President for Alumni Affairs. Also, other key Duke Alumni Association and Development team members here tonight include Grace Taylor, Melinda Whitson, and Susie Camp. So hopefully you have a chance to meet some of them if you haven't already. It was Sterling's vision and initiative that created the Duke Women's Forum. We have vibrant groups in DC, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, Dallas, Houston, Southern California, and even London. Some would ask why it took so long to get to Northern California. The mission of the Women's Forum is to bring together a cross-section of women from all of Duke's schools to develop educational programming and provide opportunities for leadership, networking, and mentorship, and also to build closer ties to the university. We invite everyone to get involved, and we'd love to hear your ideas around future programs. Lauren's going to talk a little bit at the end about what we have planned, and with that, let me turn it over to Lori to introduce our two inspirational speakers for this evening.
Thank you, Chris. And we should thank Chris for this wonderful blue devil that he goes with her everywhere she goes. It's been really fun to work with both Chris and Lauren on this event, and what a terrific turnout. This is just the best. My name is Lori Arthur, and I graduated from Duke in 1979. It's nice to see there's some other people from the 70s here. Just 5, but anyway, there's some. I have the special privilege this evening of introducing our two multi-talented, inspirational, and accomplished alumni speakers, Pamela Hawley and Kimberly Jenkins. Both women have very impressive resumes, but what really stood out to me is their genuine passion for entrepreneurship, be it social or corporate, and innovation. They also are very involved in nonprofits too. They both think out of the box, they both want to make a difference, and they both want to make the world a better place. And they both have unlimited energy. I will first start with Pamela Hawley. Pamela is a California native, born and raised on the peninsula. She graduated from Duke in 1991 with a degree in political science. I've known Pamela since she was 18 years old, and I can tell you she does not age. She looks exactly the same. Pamela came to Duke. She had a big decision to make. She'd been admitted to Duke, and she'd been admitted to Stanford, and she had to make a choice. Fortunately, her sister, Allison Hawley Johnston, who's here tonight, was already at Duke and was loving it, and Pamela made the right choice. She came to Duke. Pamela is the founder and CEO of UniversalGiving, a social entrepreneurship nonprofit organization whose vision is to create a world where giving and volunteering is a natural part of everyday life. UniversalGiving is an award-winning, web-based nonprofit allowing people to give and volunteer with the top performing projects and volunteer opportunities across the world. Prior to UniversalGiving, Pamela was a co-founder of Volunteer Match, a nonprofit which has matched more than 2 million volunteers to nonprofits. In addition, Pamela has volunteered and worked in microfinance in remote villages of India. She's done crisis relief work after the El Salvador earthquake. She has done digital divide training in the killing fields of Cambodia and sustainable farming in the countryside of Guatemala. In addition to her Duke degree, Pam has an MA degree from the Annenberg School of Communications at USC. She is often a guest speaker at the business school at USC, as well as UCLA and Stanford business schools. Hopefully, Fuqua will invite her to come speak soon. Her topics include corporate social responsibility, international strategy and expansion, global philanthropy and volunteerism, social entrepreneurship, and the web. In her spare time, Pamela is a member of an outstanding improv group here in San Francisco that's won many competitions. She's an avid Duke basketball fan, and her main love in life really are her 2 nephews and her niece, Allison's children, and she just loves spending time with her family. So Pamela, thank you so much for being here tonight. Now, it gives me great pleasure to also introduce Kimberly Jenkins and welcome her back to the Bay Area. Kimberly currently resides in North Carolina, but has strong California ties, as she and her family lived in the Bay Area for many years while she was working in Silicon Valley. Kimberly graduated from Duke in 1976 and received her PhD from Duke in 1980. She's been a member of the Duke Board of Trustees since 2001 and serves as a senior advisor to President Broadhead at Duke. She also is the university's, I think this is correct, first provost for innovation and entrepreneurship. Kimberly likes to say entrepreneurship is part of her DNA. It's where she gets her energy. So how did Kimberly get to this point? Well, it all started with this little unknown company named Microsoft, which was just a startup. Kimberly persuaded Bill Gates to let her launch an educational division. This then went on to earn billions of dollars. She then led the marketing department for the late Steve Jobs at Next, which then led her to be a consultant at such well-known Silicon Valley companies as Sun, Oracle, and Cisco Systems. She also established 2 nonprofit organizations that educated legislators on the importance of technology. Now at Duke and as provost for innovation and entrepreneurship, Kimberly is responsible for building, enhancing, and promoting entrepreneurial initiatives across the entire university, as well as with some of the global outreach efforts that Duke is doing these days. She also serves as a part-time faculty member and mentor to students in the Master's in Engineering Management program, where her special interest has been encouraging women and minorities to consider entrepreneurial careers. This is incredible. Her students are exposed to business coaching and mentoring, venture capital. They meet with experts in finance, the law, communication, and everything else they need to turn their great ideas into new companies. Duke is so lucky to have you on campus doing this. What a great gift you've given them. So with that, I will now turn the program over to our 2 amazing Duke Blue Devils, Pamela Hawley and Kimberly Jenkins.
What we thought we'd do is, Kimberly and I spoke about this, and we thought it'd be very important to make sure it's very interactive. And at the beginning, I'm going to present a bit about my story, because I know many of you are here thinking, what is social entrepreneurship? How does it manifest itself in the world? And maybe how can I become involved in it? So we're going to share a bit about our personal stories. I'm going to give a bit through the lens of universal giving, as well as some of the trends I'm seeing in both domestic and international social entrepreneurship. And then Kimberly's going to go into more what's happening at Duke. And then we're going to open it up and then really hope that we have active participation here. So behind every social entrepreneurship, there's a story. And that's one of the things that I really look for when I'm looking for good social entrepreneurs. Oops. Thank you. Sometimes the personal touch rather than technology works. Here we go. Pamela's story. Now, I'm sorry, Allison, and my sister's here. Where are you, Allison? All right, thank you. I know. So here I am, right here. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So We're on a family vacation in Mexico. My parents are two of my best friends. They've been married 40 plus years. And we're here, that's my mom, my dad, Allison, and me. Now, an important thing here in social entrepreneurship I want to point out is that trends come back. If you notice how fashionable I am here, I'm wearing an Izod, and what's just come back over the past 3 months? Lacoste, thank you. So I am fashionable back then, and unfortunately I didn't keep this shirt. I'll have to buy again. But the point is here is that I'm in Mexico, and we're here in a very joyful family vacation. But what happened in one day in a marketplace there, my father and I were walking around the marketplace, and we veered down this cul-de-sac, and I saw every starving, begging, unwashed child. And the word that came across to me was just unacceptable. And it was just, came across my mind, and it was just something that hit me so strong that I just knew that I needed to carve out my life to be devoted to it. Oops. Is it working, Alvin? Oh, there we go. Okay. So what happened is I started to volunteer. And as I did, I started to volunteer and started to do it internationally. And what happened was I started to get a lens into where are people hurting across the world. Here, for example, I was walking down the street in El Salvador, and there were people laid down on the street, and they had handkerchiefs over their mouths. And I asked a local, I said, what's going on here? Their lives were so miserable that they were stealing glue from the local shoe factory and putting the handkerchiefs over their mouths so they could pass out and get some relief from their life. The second place that I went to, another place, was India. In India, unfortunately, in some of the remote villages, not all of it, but if you have a girl child, it is, and this is very, very tough information, at times, those children are not allowed to exist, and they are taken care of by certain stoves that they have. And finally, another trip that really struck me was in Chiang Ek. In Chiang Ek, and you're here in Cambodia with Pol Pot's regime having devastated so many people across the world by wiping out thousands of intellectuals. And what I saw in this beautiful landscape and field was filled with that stupa were all the skulls of the people who were affected by Pol Pot's regime. And I knew that that word unacceptable that came to me at such a young age was I knew I had to do something about this. So when you look at it, social entrepreneurship is waiting, is an organization, and I want to talk about this because it's a story that leads you to this definition. What is the story that leads you to this? And it's, to me, it's an organization which serves our community in a strategic manner with business principles. And so you've got to figure out what your story is and then figure out then how do you go serve the community in a strategic way with business principles. The second way that we look at it is it's an organization which ideally offers one service that's free and one that generates revenue. I think that the time for nonprofits where they don't generate revenue, I'd encourage most nonprofits, not all, but most of them, and certainly you have to if you're a for-profit social entrepreneurship organization, to be able to generate revenue. It can't just be the fundraising. You need to find multiple ways to support your efforts and find ways to monetize it. And so these are advanced definitions of leadership that help define it, rather than I'm just a smart business person running this organization. Keep in mind what I put here is not run like a business. There are businesses out there that aren't well run. Run with business principles. So it's got to be run effectively. And the third is that what it can be is that nonprofit or for-profit. And I think ideally when Bill Drayton first brought up this term in the 60s, that we thought of it as more so nonprofit. But we are seeing a huge swing start to go more to the for-profit side. Now, incubation is happening all over. You're going to see all these different types of groups that are happening. Whoops. So Unreasonable Institute, Hub Ventures, then you've got the Ecotech, and then you've also got Transformative Action. When I was growing up, you didn't have this. So what was happening was that I found out about social entrepreneurship, and someone spoke about it at a conference. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And I ran to the payphone, yes, that's what I ran to, which we don't have anymore. They're like outlawed or something. You can't find them anywhere. And I called my dad and said, Dad, I know what I want to do. And my sister, who knows this, was very circuitous for me. I left 4 jobs in 4 years, couldn't find what I left to do. He goes, that's free, honey. Can you get paid for it? Well, that's another journey. Now it's so much easier, but back then it was harder to figure out how you're going to do that. So my social entrepreneurship incubation was that. It was basically going back to my story, and then what that story leads to then is, what that story leads to is the vision, and then it goes into the impact, and then it goes into your success. So that's what I always look for. If you want to become a social entrepreneur, if you're encouraging people to do it, you've got to go into what the story is that leads to vision, that leads to impact. Otherwise, sometimes people are thinking about a cool idea. It's got to be something from the heart, something that inspires you. And it might not be something that's on a street in Mexico, but it might be some conversation or something that really riveted you. So, quickly, Universal Giving, basically we're a public website that helps people give and donate and volunteer. And yep, we're going to keep moving it, Yawen. Thank you. And then Universal Giving's unique model. If we go into what we are a nonprofit. We decided to do that because it communicates transparency when we're dealing with money. We don't want to be a for-profit. We want it to be clear. Second, what we do is we don't take a cut on the donation. 100% goes direct to the nonprofit. Third, as we're looking at it, all organizations are vetted by a quality model. We've got to make sure that we're dealing with trust, especially when we're dealing with international giving. Number 4, we look at this that we need to leverage 2 services in both giving and volunteering. And then number 5, as we look at it, our revenue, we generate it through a corporate service, which helps support our mission. And then moving on, as we go on from the unique model, what we look at is we are striving to be the go-to site in quality volunteering and giving across the world. That's one of the biggest things, is being able to establish that trust. So, part of our services include here in this quality model, and we'll just run through this very quickly. Yawen, go ahead and just shoot them all down. We've got all these different types of vetting. Started off with 6 stages, we now have 22. And the next slide, please. Quickly on our gift packages, this gives you an idea. How can you give meaningful gifts? It's not just about donating, but how do you make it a part of everyone's everyday life? How do you do that? And that is by being able to give people sports gifts, or here, Landmines Blow takes lands that used to have landmines on them and creates it so that people can make them into sustainable farms. Next slide. And gift packages, this is interesting. As a social entrepreneur, you'll learn. People were really interested in poverty, and then what they really wanted was something that was lighter. So we got requests to have lighter things. This is one of our top gift packages, adopting chimpanzees. Who would know? You will learn as a social entrepreneur. That's what happens. And then as we go on, we have to innovate. We found that people wanted to give quickly. So we created quick gifts, which allowed you to give this to multiple people at one time. And if you wanted to be really quick, you could do the same message, send out a gift package, and get all of your holiday shopping done by giving the same gift or different gifts to different people really, really quickly and get it done in one shot. So we had to deal with that quick mindset as well. Now, from this, that's the public site that's free. What we look at next is some of the key milestones. You've got to get those out as a social entrepreneur. Some of the key milestones, for example, we had Jefferson Award. We also were a finalist for Ernst & Young, Global Ethics. And then moving on, as you keep looking at it, we've started to measure results. You've got to do that as a social entrepreneur. 10,000 volunteer referrals equals 16 million worth of volunteer hours. Our volunteers volunteer for about 2 weeks, and so we monetize those hours to be able to demonstrate that work to the community. So that's key, and we watch for that in social entrepreneurship. Other quick things we got were homepage features here. And then moving on, our Universal Giving Corporate. Now this is the side on generating revenue, which I think really drives to the heart of social entrepreneurship. We create and manage CSR programs all over the world. We do that, and then we work on the strategy, the operations, and the NGO vetting to help them run those CSR programs. So for example, with Cisco and their giving and volunteer programs, helping them scale it across the world. How do we help you do that effectively? And this is what generates revenue for our nonprofit mission. Moving on. So we help companies with the strategy, and we help them with their brand image. So if you see, we help them become more green as they move forward. Then the next thing that we help them work on is employee attraction and retention. They need to make sure that their employees want to be there at the organization, and especially with YGen. YGen will go in and they'll sell routers for Cisco, but they want to know what you're doing is being effective and helping the community. And they often won't join your company without doing it. They've known to promote your brands on Facebook or to de-promote them. And so you've got to make sure that they're happy. Next, what we also look at is client attraction and retention. And clients need to know the same thing. And then also, as we move forward too, we look at a local license to operate. You've got to make sure, this is funny, when I was coaching some CEOs on this, they said, well, what does that mean? Where's my certificate? There is no certificate. It's about attaining trust. You've got to be able to attain trust with the local community. So in this local license to operate, we ensure CSR impacts the community in a measurable way. And the second thing we do is gain the respect of the government officials, of corporate executives, of even the tribes people. You've got to be able to do that. And when you do it, you don't take out, you've got to invest in. If you're going in and doing mining within the fields, whatever you're doing, you've got to make sure that you're leaving the place better than when you left it. However you leave it, as a better schoolyard, or if you extract things out, do you leave it as farmland that can be used? You've got to leave it better. And that is attaining the trust of the local community. Now, this also leads to increased product adoption. We are not just going in and selling a service that's only feel good. It's got to hit their bottom line. If you're going to be a true social entrepreneur, it's got to hit the for-profit bottom line. What it also does as well is, keep going, sorry, is work on the strategy here, the operations that go all across the world, and then you're working on the scalability for them, and then also the NGO vetting. So your bottom line, what it does is it's money and it's product. But what your real bottom line is it's money, it's product, and then it's affecting with donations, volunteering, product donations, environmental sustainability, and ethical supply chain. You have to be thinking about it this way. And this is where the bottom line here, you think that that's what it is as a company, you've got to be able to service this as well. Because this whole view in social entrepreneurship and CSR, what it's doing, go ahead and move on, is making your employees, your clients, your suppliers, all of these constituents, they have to be your bottom line. They will drive your bottom line and your revenue. But it can't just be about I'm selling product the way that we many of us grew up with that 20 years ago. Here's some of our sample clients. And then finally, as we look at social entrepreneurship, what we see here in some of the trends, it's going to continue to evolve, this definition that we've kind of had that's amorphous. Second, what we see is we will experience a shakeout, very similar to 2001 with kind of the dot-com era. We've got a lot of innovative ideas right now. We are seeing a lot of super new thinkers and people doing great ideas in Africa, India, entrepreneurs from here bringing ideas there, entrepreneurs from there bringing ideas here. And there will be a shakeout. And what's going to happen is this time it's going to affect VCs. You're going to see it affect the venture capitalist community because it's not just philanthropists who are investing in it, it's also investors who are investing in it. So you'll see higher amount of for-profits involved, and you'll see it affecting VCs. Part of the thing that you should see too is read some of the books, some of the innovations coming out called reverse innovation and frugal innovation. What they talk about is the fact that you're coming up with, for example, baby warmers from an organization called Embrace. They're low-cost baby warmers, and they're basically established in India and other developing nations to allow women to keep their babies alive by giving them baby warmers. And what's happening is it's so low cost and so cutting edge, they're now using it in the US. You will see this with medical procedures. You will see this start to happen as well with recycling, and you'll see it as well start to happen with medical devices. It's happening across everything, where innovations that are happening to serve the developing nation are coming in and undercutting prices in the US. And this is social entrepreneurship that's taking place within companies like GE, within small, total startup nonprofits, within social entrepreneurs that are for-profits. This expansion of social entrepreneurship is exploding within Fortune 500 companies, within for-profits, and within nonprofits. We are just hitting the tip of the iceberg. In about 15, 20 years, to me, it'll be more established. So, to me, Bill Drayton talks about social entrepreneurs are not content just to give a fish or to teach how to fish. They're not happy until they revolutionize the fishing industry. And that's what's happening now. Our whole industry is being revolutionized by every single player on the field. It's my joy to be involved in this, and I'm really looking forward to the questions that you have and how you want to make an impact in the world. And if I can be of help to you, especially because you're a Dookie, anything I can do, and whatever questions you have, I'm constantly learning and constantly shocked at how much is going on out there that's so exciting about the world. And I'm looking forward now to hearing what Kimberly has to say about what's going on at Duke, and then to taking on your questions. So thank you.
So, I've been asked to tell you a few stories about two subjects. One is a little bit about my background and my pathway into innovation and entrepreneurship and the career I'm in now, and then specifically about Duke and what we're doing at a place many of you care about deeply. So, no slides, just briefly, I thought I'd start with one of the stories you launched, Lori, and that is the Microsoft story. Students ask me about this all the time, and it relates to where I am today. So I left Duke after getting this PhD, and it's hard to get a job when you have a PhD in a down market. I mean, what do you do with that if you're not going into academia? And I married a fellow Dookie, and we moved to Seattle, not because I got some great job at Microsoft, but because we met through Project Wild. Any Project Wild alums? Oh, okay. Do most of you know Project Wild? Okay, all right. Well, Tom and I met in Project Wild, and we moved to Seattle because there's mountains. I mean, where are you going to go in the U.S. if you're serious about mountain climbing? And that turned out to be Seattle. I had a heck of a time finding a job, but I landed a job at the time, little, no-name company called Microsoft. And I did it because it was headquartered in Seattle. And I got invited in as a programmer, which most of my friends who know me, they fall off their chairs with laughter. That's so not, you don't need to laugh, but really I'm not that programming oriented, but and I wasn't happy. I was there for 6 months and terribly unhappy. But I got that PhD in education. I come from a long line of educators, and I swore I wouldn't go into that field, but there I found myself, and I was passionate about how technology could impact teaching and learning. So I went to Steve Ballmer, I'm sure most of you know of, and I put together a proposal for starting an education division, basically selling off-the-shelf Microsoft products, not any new investment. Let's take what we have and sell it to K through 12 and universities. And Steve Ballmer said, in his big personality way, "That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. We'll never make any money in education." And I said, "Okay, well, here's my resignation letter." I mean, that's how strongly I felt. I was going to go find the place that would let me do this. And Steve said, "Sit right there, sit right there." So he ran in and he told Bill Gates, "She wants to start an education division." And Bill Gates said, "That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. We'll never make any money in education." And Steve told him I was prepared to quit. And Bill said, thank goodness he said this, "I love it. I love her chutzpah." You know, he came out and said, "You can do it. You can't have any head count. You can't hire any people. I will let you fly wherever you want. But, you know, we're not adding staff on this crazy idea, stupid idea." And I said, "Okay, I'll take it." And that was February of 1983. There were 300 employees at Microsoft, so it was privately held. It wasn't even the Microsoft you all have heard of. And by, I joined in 83. It was February of 1984, and by, we were on a calendar fiscal year, by December of '84, it was 10% of Microsoft's domestic revenue. And those guys said, wow, we can make a lot of money in education. So it kind of launched my career, and the story that I tell students when they ask me, how'd you get it? And they think there's some formula. And I tell them there wasn't a formula, but I did pursue my passions. And I was really willing to put my job on the line and to live out those passions. And it did launch my career. I did go from there to working, so I went from Bill Gates to Steve Jobs, not bad. And I went to work with Steve when he founded Next, because that was a company that originally was focused on education. And you brought me into the present. I'll skip a little there. I did have an extraordinary 10 years in Washington, D.C. If any of you were in the policy world, I worked on internet policy with the Clinton administration and had a fantastic time. Moved to Duke for two reasons. One was family oriented. I have two sons, and the quality of life in Chapel Hill, Durham area is unparalleled. I did live out here in Palo Alto 10 years, and it's my second favorite place. Really, truly. I lived in Seattle, I lived in DC, I grew up in New York, so second here. But I love where I live now, and I love my connection to Duke. So let me tell you a little bit about why I moved there, not only for quality of life for my children, but also because I did end up on the board of trustees at Duke, and I made a nuisance of myself on that board. I've been on it for 9 years, and the reason I say I made a nuisance was the last 5 years I made it my mission to bring up the topic of innovation and entrepreneurship at every single meeting. I did not care who was on the stage talking. I would raise my hand and be in their face until they'd call on me, and I said, when will Duke get serious about innovation and entrepreneurship? There's just so much opportunity here. Our students need it, our faculty are doing it already, our alumni are all over this topic. Let's start to be organized about it. And they got tired of me, and they just said, okay, put your hand down. I did have to step down from the board. And I took on the position running innovation and entrepreneurship. And the first thing I want to say about that is it's the whole university. So a lot of people think this happens in the business school, which it does. Fuqua is phenomenal in this area. Or this happens in engineering, which it does. We are ranked high in this area, and I can go on about that. Or it happens in medicine, which, as you all know, we're top tier in that. But actually, my first job was to connect all of these great people and siloed programs together. And so in the trustee meeting where the president announced that I would be doing this job, and then the trustees were all sitting around the conference room table saying, firing questions at me, and the first question they asked was, what are the first 3 things you're going to do? And I'm sitting there like a deer in the headlights, like, ooh. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit the ground listening. And that's exactly what I did. I thought I knew a lot about innovation and entrepreneurship. I thought I knew a lot about Duke, based on my career and my board service. But I didn't really know exactly what was going on. And what I wanted to listen to was not only our faculty, our staff, our students, but especially our alumni. So that's part of why I'm here. When I was in DC all those years, I was a very active member of the Women's Forum in DC, which Sterling confirms was one of the first groups. And so I'm especially proud to be with this group, especially pleased that this is your launch. So I'm engaging with alumni across the board. And what I want to, the short version of this, and I get like, Pamela, I want to save a lot of time for interaction. So the very short version is that we have created programs for our undergraduates and graduate and professional students. We are working with faculty. Duke was one of the first 5 universities in the country to receive a $10 million grant for our medical device research commercialization. We matched that $10 million with our own $10 million, so we now have a $20 million endowment that is at the intersection of what our physicians are saying patients' needs, and our engineers know how to make the devices that solve those needs. And we're top tier. You may or may not know that Duke is ranked first in the nation in research dollars from industry and 7th in the nation from research dollars from the federal government. And so with all this intellectual capital and extraordinary faculty, I'm working on how can we get some of that great intellectual capital out of the university. So the mode of universities used to be you create new knowledge, and then it moved into you disseminate that knowledge. I'm telling you right now, the focus of universities is you translate that knowledge. You must get it out. So creation, dissemination, we're now all about translation. Duke has all the raw materials, the research dollars, the incredible faculty, and the extraordinary students. So let me tell you a little bit about the students and how we want to plug into you, and then we'll open it up. Our students are what keeps me this energized, and I think we all were one of them. And the main passion they have is, first they asked me to create some serious courses for them, and we didn't have that. We had courses, but they were kind of ad hoc, or they didn't all plug together neatly. We now are about to announce a program. It will not be a major. We don't think you should major in innovation and entrepreneurship, but we will have a special program probably called Innovation Scholars, something of that nature, where you can take courses across the entire undergraduate curriculum. So we believe that entrepreneurship is a team sport, and it takes engineers and psychologists and historians and lawyers and business people to all work together. So we're going to approach it in a truly interdisciplinary fashion at the curricular level. We bring in a lot of practitioners to teach those courses. So some of them are premier faculty. We just endowed a chair and brought in the best guy in the country to help us teach entrepreneurship in Trinity. And so the students, their second request was for practical experience, and they want internships. And I'm happy to see Shay Dodonna here tonight, because a group of our alumni, especially in this area, got together. It's, if you don't know about it, you should all check out Duke Gen. It stands for Global Entrepreneurship Network. It's 4,200 strong. It is the largest, bar none, alumni group for entrepreneurs. And it's really positioned Duke well, and I have to say that network has been actively engaged. So this summer, with Shay's help, we are going to be hosting 10 students. It's a pilot, we're just checking it out, and they're here. They will be in Silicon Valley, they will be in startup companies throughout Silicon Valley, and also we have an incubator program, and Shay has helped create a curriculum for them, so they'll be in their incubator or startup company all week until Friday, and then they'll get together. And I'm hoping that we can plug some of the people here into that, because we have extraordinary.
A guest speaker, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And she's serious about that. I can tell you a few right in the front row here that you need to get to know. So we're going to help our students get practical experience. Next summer, we're launching a program called Duke in Silicon Valley. And details to remain to be ironed out completely, but it will be a course taught by Clay Christensen, who is the guru of innovation and entrepreneurship. He's from Harvard Business School. He and his son Matt, who is a Duke alum, Duke basketball player. If any of you watched our championship games in the 90s, Matt was on that team. He went to Harvard afterwards, worked closely with his dad, and they're going to co-teach this course. I'll be involved in that as well. So stay tuned. We're going to link that course to internships. The whole reason we're doing this is in response to the students who want to come out. This is where they want to come, but the plan is we're going to replicate that. We're going to do it not just in Silicon Valley, but then probably next in New York, because there's a different kind of entrepreneurship, a broader range of arts and media and fashion and design, as well as tech, and then Boston and Austin and so forth. The last thing I'll say is that getting back to your topic of social entrepreneurship, it's really important for you to know that Duke has top tier social entrepreneurship programs. The home of that, our brightest star in that arena, is in Fuqua. I know a number of you are alums of Fuqua, and it's called the Center for the Advancement of Social Entrepreneurship. We have the world-renowned leader in this field is Greg Dees. He was at Stanford and part of that Harvard, and we recruited him to Duke. He's extraordinary, and we have a whole team around that. What I'm trying to do is integrate social entrepreneurship from the business school across the whole university. So stay tuned, we're starting to do that. And with that, maybe I'll just stop and let you all engage. And Pamela and I would both welcome your questions. We have a mic for you that will be passed out.
Who wants to start? Hi you guys, and hello everyone. My name is Chloe Fagan Tucker, and I've actually chatted with you, Kimberly, maybe a little bit back when I was in DC.
Yeah.
But I just want to ask, how can alumni get in on all of this great innovation and work that's being done at the university? I'd love to hear about, everything that current Duke students have a chance to participate in. But as a young alumni, I'm really itching to really get into some of that activity, and I'm wondering, aside from going to business school myself, what can I do to kind of get involved and really take advantage of some of these great resources?
Well, I'll stand up just so the people in the back can see me. I love that question. And there are several ways in which alums get involved now. One is we have a very robust startup challenge. It's called the Duke Startup Challenge. By the way, I just mentioned that for the first time ever, a woman won that, and her entire team is female. So get on our website, entrepreneurship@duke.edu, and you'll see all about that. But you can judge in the Startup Challenge. You can come to campus and teach a course. I would love for some of you to come tell your stories. The #1 way that our students learn about this is to hear your stories. How did you get to where you are? What were your failures? What were your successes? You can mentor. We're setting up a way to structure a mentorship program. You can host an intern. As this program grows, just so you know, we have used donations from our alumni to help fund our students. A lot of startup companies cannot afford to pay, or a social venture doesn't have the kind of money it takes to pay for a Duke intern. And we're talking sort of cost of living. These aren't lavish, but we are paying the stipends for our students to come out here, and your ventures can host them. And I would strongly encourage you to look at Duke Gen. It's a very robust virtual network. So if you, as an entrepreneur or someone in an innovative venture, want to ask a question like, I'm looking for a software engineer that does this, or I want to launch a new venture in Kenya that does that, who do you know and how can I get help? That's a network that people will start to answer your question. We also just, one more pitch about Duke Gen, we have pitch events. So if any of you are serial entrepreneurs, and I know there are some in the cocktail hour, I think are the real sweet spot for great startups happens when you're an alum, when you're slightly, you're out, not straight out of Duke. You might have some business experience or social venture experience, and you're ready to start to launch something. We have a pitch event in San Francisco. I think it's June 5th this year, and we have it in the fall in New York. And every year we do this over and over again, and alums come and they pitch there. So we have a competition for our alums. I would encourage you to look at all of those.
Okay, I'm going to take another question.
Hi, thanks for coming out. This is super interesting, and for those of us involved in Duke Gen, it's great to hear the rest of the story. One quick comment, I thought the dorm program was really interesting, and maybe you want to go into that up front with Duke Gen. And then I guess the question would be, as a Fuqua alumni, what can we do to help expand CASE? You mentioned that that's a big priority. I was just there last weekend, and we talked more about being nervous about it shrinking, given resources and that sort of thing. What can we do from letter writing or something more hands-on? We'd love to know.
Well, you've raised two good points. let me start with the case situation first. Case is, as I said, world renowned. We've got some of the best people in the country working on social entrepreneurship. I would agree with what you said, that this is a growing field, and among Duke students, it is one of the biggest reasons they come to Duke. You may have heard about Duke Engage. It's not just about basketball anymore, it's about social entrepreneurship, and we have definitely got that flavor going at Duke. What we are trying to do with CASE, I'll be point blank, is we need to raise the money to endow the professorships and to build the programs to support the practicums that send our students into the field, and that's really the best way to help. I would tell you that our leadership at Duke, they'll receive any email or letter you want to write, but they know that this is really, really important, and so we're talking about it all the time, and that's one way. The dorm. It's called InCube. We have a selective living group, and it's 18 members strong. This is the first year of existence. They physically locate in Central Campus. The first thing these kids did was they scraped the bubbles off, the popcorn ceiling. Yeah, well, they got in trouble. The dorm got shut down because they're very entrepreneurial. Well, there's asbestos in that popcorn, so. My first gig, I'm really championing this dorm, and the first thing he did was get in trouble. But that aside, there's 18 students that they created over the course of this first year, 10 companies coming out of there. Several are social ventures, most are commercial ventures. There's some of our real rock stars are coming out of that dorm, and their goal in life is to find the most entrepreneurial students and recruit them. I want to be honest with this group, as I look out on their faces, there are very few women in that group, and out of 18 this year there were 2 females. So we are trying to think about how we might host some events to show the women at Duke that there are a lot of opportunities, and being a part of this dorm is an extraordinary experience. They came out to Silicon Valley for spring break. They met at Kleiner Perkins, they met at Yahoo, they met at Google, they met at Apple with Eddie Q, one of the highlights. They met at Square, they met at Box.net, and on and on and on. They had an extraordinary, truly life-changing experience, and I just can't say enough about this. It is the center of gravity in the undergraduate experience, is that. And I'll close, when I talk about that, I also want to say, we are building a physical home for I&E at Duke. It's, did any of you take courses in gross chem? You know how gross chem is? The name couldn't be more apt. Well, it's totally renovated. It's hip, it's cool, it's got concrete floors, it's got all the great colors. We're on the first floor of gross chem, and we're taking over a big space there where we're going to put the whiteboards. The students saw the nap chairs at Google. I'm going to put in napping chairs. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I'm just listening. And because they want to stay there overnight. I'm giving them 24/7 access to this space, and we're going to have coffee, whatever. And I'm just making a place where students can collide, and I got some ideas earlier today about how we need to take a look at best practices, which, by the way, we have done. I've visited MIT and Stanford in particular. I know they're top tier. We're looking at what they do, and we're going to take them, and we're looking at Harvard's iLab, and going to see if we can't incorporate some of that into what we build at Duke. So.
And I should just mention another thing about that too. When you're looking about trying to promote it, or however whatever section of Duke or social entrepreneurship, I can't underestimate the power again of social media, and not just within our own Duke community, but using your Facebook if you can, your nonprofits or companies' Facebook where it's appropriate, blogs that you can post on. Part of what I've been working on with Duke is helping look at some of the fundraising for it, and they are going to foundations. And I'll tell you, all those executives on foundations, they've got their Twitter feeds. And one of the things that makes foundations close is they are watching for how talked about you are. And if they are seeing all of this foment and energy and activity around, wow, this is so neat. Even small things, and individuals saying, this is great, this affected my life. Or, I went to Fuqua and it helped gear my pathway and how I'm affecting the world, and this is how I'm contributing. Or look at this neat event. The more and more they see that talking, the more likely it's going to close. I can't tell you, most of the foundation executives, they look and they say, we're not going to be a first mover. We will jump in after we see it. Not really the first wave, they jump in after the third wave. So as much as we can spread that out in different ways beyond our own Duke community is incredibly powerful. So it's not just Dukies, because they know the Duke you're talking about, right? We got to get beyond our community and get other people tweeting, retweeting about us as well too.
So we'll take another question. My roommate.
That's right.
In college. We haven't seen each other since we graduated. My question is for Pamela. For those of us who work for a for-profit organization right now, what's your advice on advocating for social responsibility if you truly see that the product that you're working on have potential in emerging economies or developing countries, but your company is not focusing on it because they're looking at the revenue? How do you make them aware of social responsibility?
Yes, and that's absolutely key. I think the key thing there is really understanding your manager, your CEO, whoever it is, whoever that is, start small. And the real key there is look at what, and I love what Kimberly said, I think listening is so important. We've all got this drive and this passion. And one of the greatest things I've learned, and a lot of this happened through improv, is we have to be excellent listeners. And I just want to veer off here and talk a little bit about improv because I think it relates to what you're talking about. When you're on the improv stage, people think that you need to think quickly. And they think you need to have great characters, and you do. But if I come on stage and I think I'm an 80-year-old grandmother, but you think I'm a 60-year-old truck driver, our whole views collide and the audience sees that. You've got to listen to the other person, and you have to adopt their ideas. For you, going into your company, you have to listen to them and adopt what their ideas, adopt what their objectives are. So I can help you and I can send you information from this PowerPoint, which we touched on it briefly. You go right into bottom line only with them and what their view of bottom line is. And you look at how you drive their product adoption, how you drive their brand awareness, how you make sure that you keep YGen happy. It is not just about employee recruitment. It is about keeping and retaining employees. And I could help work with you some on that one-on-one if you like. Second thing is to be very careful, limited bits of information, no big presentation. You scare people off, right? They're like, it's not a product. I'm trying to sell it into China and all these places. You've got to figure out what's going to hit their value proposition. If they're all about China, then we come up with something on CSR in China. And we figure out how we go in there and make sure the company meets their bottom line. But you and I know that we're reaching their real bottom line, right? The real bottom line is people and serving the community. And if you do that, then you will increase revenue. We can't go frou-frou here. This isn't a fruity concept, CSR, about just doing good. It is good, and that's wonderful. But it has to meet corporate objectives, because at the end of the day, companies have to exist to make money. They do. We know that. Otherwise, you become a nonprofit. And you always see it on an improv stage. You never say but, that's a block. And what you do is you say, and this will help the community. The funny thing is, a couple of times when I work with CEOs and I've gotten them to go to volunteer events, they're like, all right, do I have to go? I'm like, we need you there. We need you as a model for other people. And just, I know this is not your top priority right now. I don't have any CEO that comes to me afterwards and says that's a waste of time. Every single one, what happens? I know what's going to happen. I know it before he or she gets in there. That heart is going to open up. How can you not pick up a shovel? And I do not let them just cut that ribbon. No, you don't get just to cut the ribbon. You're going to pick up a shovel with me too, and I am too, okay? We're going to do this now. And when they're serving the community, the heart opens. Now, of course, you don't tell them that. But I mean, that gives you a little bit of an idea. We have to drill down into your business and figure out how do we drive towards the geography, the product, and figure out what we do. And it might even be as simple as starting off with cause-related marketing. That's most usually easily acceptable for them. You have to do the exact same thing that Kimberly did. What Kimberly did at Microsoft, fine. You're not going to give me a head count? No problem. I'll do it. And then we have to figure out how to watch your time and make sure you can still survive without taking on the whole CSR objective. But that's what we do with Cisco too. When you look at Cisco, they're in 40 countries across the world. All those employees who are helping run those programs all across the world, there's over 200 of them. How many of them do you think are paid? That's right, 0. 0 paid. That you. Hey, that's not fair. You're not allowed to do that. Okay, the other person, you said 300. Okay, close enough. You win. So, I mean, the point is that they are doing it out of their hearts, and it is hitting the bottom line. But you've got to start gently. You can't go in and give a full-blown big PowerPoint. You got to just talk about it gently. Hey, I heard this woman speaking the other day, and heard how this can reach a bottom line, and you just keep doing it. Multimedia. I'm looking at communications. And I always watch it this way. When I'm trying to get a message across, I number one tell myself, especially with my team, I know that I've done my job after I've communicated it 8 times in different ways. It shows that people do not accept things until they've heard it in 5 different ways from different media. So when I have messages to the team, I tweet to them, I tell them in person. I do it one-on-one, I do it as a group. And after I've done it 5 times, I go, no girl, you don't get to give up. You get to do it 3 more times, and then hopefully I'm really sure I've made it happen. So at that point, you're doing that, but you're doing it in a way, and obviously not all in one day. You've got to come forward with multifaceted ways about doing it. And what's their main communication medium? How do they like to communicate? Do they check Twitter 3 times a day? Do they go on Facebook once a month? Well, then you're not going to want to post on Facebook 3 times because you're not going to get their eyes. So happy to talk to you more too.
Great, thank you. Any more questions?
Hi, Pamela. Your talk was fantastic. I just can't tell you how inspiring it was. Several friends of mine and I've had a small nonprofit that we've started, and it's, we all have other businesses. I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a doctor, and a lot of the people who are involved in it are doctors or people who care about it, and we have been getting together, and we never knew how to grow what we were doing. We were reaching out. We actually, I was like, can you give us your slides? That was incredible. And I just want to know how you came up with all these ideas about how to take something from this incubator stage to the extraordinary level at what you're doing. It was just incredibly fascinating. Where did you learn all these ideas about how to grow it?
Oh, goodness. Well, I always say this, and I didn't get a chance tonight to present on this, but normally my presentations, and we have, first of all, Yalwin, would you please stand up? She helped put together my presentations, and our clicker wasn't working tonight, and she was my clicker. So Yalwin, thank you for being my clicker. But we have such a wonderful team, and what basically we do when I start off with a presentation, I spend the first 5 minutes talking about my family. There is no way I am who I am without that influence of my family. My parents modeled for me giving and volunteering in the day-to-day life. And gosh, I never thought about it, but wow, that's where our vision came from. Create a world where giving and volunteering are a natural part of everyday life. It really was from seeing that in my parents. My dad was not necessarily a formal volunteer, either my mom when we were growing up, but they were constantly giving and giving of themselves. And I'm very fortunate. My father's a businessman and my mom is a musician. And I got so much learning from both of them. They have such amazing values and such great thinkers. And my dad and I would be on bike rides, and he'd be teaching me about business when I didn't even know it. So whoever your mentor is, whoever it is, I literally go down every weekend and I call my mom and my dad every morning, even if I had nothing to say. Sometimes my mom would be like, that's all you call? Yes, Mom, have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't think she wants to hear from me every morning, but I still want to call her. So, but it's important to thank those people, whoever your mentor is. And I just absorb a lot and watch. And then I think from my dad being in business and my mom being, who she was and creating her own musical organization as well, I'm very practical and feet on the ground. How does this work? My first job was literally called Pam's place, asked my sister, out of my room, that I had a Dutch door that opened up, and I opened it up, and I made little, I actually made glitter pencils. That was my first project. I went to my dad and tried to sell him regular pencils. And I came in and he goes, well, I can go to Walgreens and I can get, because I tried to sell it to him for like $2 for a pencil. Really went high on my dad. And back then, these days, I probably would have gone to someone else for $100 for a pencil. And he basically said, Pamela, I'm not going to buy this from you until you go make it special. I went back to my room. I thought, and I took all this glue out, and I rolled the pencil in glue, and I put all these sparkles and glitter, and to this day, I'm still sparkly and glittery. Asked my sister everything. I'm like all about that. And I went back to him, I said, Dad, here's a pencil. Is this special? He said, yes, now it is. I had to think about that with Universal Giving. How do we make it glitter? How do we make it sparkle? How do you create a site that makes people want to come to it, that makes it sticky? How do you listen? We're listening. Chimpanzees? I never would have said, hey team, let's go create a bunch of gift packages with chimpanzees. I'm like, are you kidding? The other thing that we learned, our other most popular gift package, men giving gift packages to their wives or significant others of $100 to help women in Africa stop hemorrhaging during childbirth. I thought I'm like, oh my gosh, to get that, I mean, that's what most popular. You have to listen. And then continue to build and build your service based on listening to constantly listen. Come up with your plan, and I always tell my team this, ask Yarwin, plan your work your plan, and guess what? It's gonna change. So you've gotta keep listening that way. Second, I've always been driven by wanting to make a profit. Allison's and my first job was Holly Camp. We went and we set up 2, 3, 6 week, I think, sessions, and we worked together as that. Now, Allison will tell you, I am not creative at all. She basically dresses me, she helps me figure things out. She knows I get into a sweat when I'm trying to figure if something matches. That's why you'll see me wearing solids. It's amazing, this has a pattern on it tonight. My sister is amazing. We totally complement each other. I'm more like, no. We don't have enough budget to buy that kind of snack. And my sister wants to get a high-end snack for the kids. I'm like, no, I want to go and I want to save the money so we can do this. We work off each other. And we learned together that summer. And it was so exciting. And so you've got to take your life experiences, listen to them, and start. There's no time that's too small to start. You can't say, you don't necessarily learn this in business school. You've got to learn it in life and figure out every single way, how do I build something? Holly Camp was instrumental for me. I can definitely say Universal Giving was based on what I learned then. And you've got to look at every experience and figure out what's the next step and start that way.
Okay, we'll take another question.
Amy, actually, we're going to wrap and we'll have some more time after. But let me step up here. First of all, I want to thank Pamela and Kimberly so much. I'm Lauren Cook-Levitan from the class of '87, and I feel like I'm probably the most unpopular person in the room right now for having to cut this off and put it to an end, but we do want to be respectful of people's times. So thank you, everyone. You're all prepared to wake up tomorrow morning and change the world, because you've been inspired like I have been. Want to thank Autodesk also, and then I want to give you guys a few things that we're really excited about with respect to this Women's Forum. I'm so pleased with tonight's event, with the turnout, with our fabulous speakers, and the wisdom they've imparted upon us. We're really hoping that this is the beginning of a lot of interactions between all of us who are here together tonight, and hopefully other friends that you know and other women in the Bay Area who have some connection to do. So I'm going to do something that you normally never are asked to do at a meeting, which is take out your cell phones or your BlackBerries or your smartphones and write these few things down, because this is how we want to be able to stay in touch with you. The first is, we got a lot of feedback from people that they didn't know about this and they haven't, they didn't know how they could be reached out to participate in this. Well, there's a very simple thing. You need to update your information with Duke so they know how to find you, because that's how then the Duke Northern California Women's Forum will be able to find you. So if for some reason we're not reaching you via the proper email address, you're going to go to www.dukedirectory.com. You can go there anytime, or on your way out you can just give us an update. That'll be the easiest way for us to stay in touch with you. The second thing is, the Northern California Duke Alumni Club has a Facebook group. It'll be a really easy way for us to communicate with one another, but you have to join that group. And so For those of you who are on Facebook, I'm assuming most of you are, please, when you get home, make yourself a note now, go on Facebook and join that group. And then the final thing is, we mentioned earlier that there'll be other types of opportunities for us to interact with one another. One of the forums that's used very successfully in all of the other women's forums is called a neighborhood coffee. And we have 4 coffees that are already established. And you should have found on your chair this little form that shows who's hosting, in what neighborhoods, and on what days and times. So I won't go into the details of that. It's all there in front of you. But we'd love for you to join us. Yes, Dana?
What is the name of the Facebook group again?
If you go, I should know this exactly. It's Duke Club of Northern California.
Thank you.
And Eric Wong is the administrator. And you'll go in there and you'll request to be added, and then you will be added, and we'll be delighted to have you. But with respect to the neighborhood coffees, these are much more informal gatherings with no specific content and no fabulous speakers, but rather an opportunity for people to interact on a more casual and informal basis. And the idea is to do them locally. So if you have an interest in hosting or sponsoring one of those in the future or attending, we'd love to have you. And I know that in some of the other cities where women's forums are very vibrant, the neighborhood coffees are something that are done on an ongoing basis. And we've been told that women across different schools, across different age groups have gotten to know each other very well. So the last thing I'd like to say, in addition to thank you, is thank you to Sterling, and I would love to invite Sterling up to welcome all of you. We're so glad that Sterling brought the idea of the women's forum to Bay Area. So thank you.
We hope that you will stay and enjoy some time together.